Well, hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Color of Money podcast. I am your girl, Julia Lachey, and I'm joined by my big brothers. We got Unc, we call him, but his name is Emmerich Peace. We've got Bowman Keaty here with us today, and we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation. So listen up and tune in. And if you don't like it, email Emmerich. If you do like it, DM me, message me, and tell us you want to hear more about this conversation. What we're talking about is really interesting. See, in the Black community, it's commonly taught that independence is strength. We're often taught that it's the way to secure our financial futures, and the way to do that is by being independent, sometimes overly independent. That narrative is often impressed on Black women. But we all know that sustainable success and sustainable wealth is actually built through partnerships, not through independence. It's the old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So in today's episode, we're going to actually talk about the cost of doing it alone. And we'll have my perspective, and my perspective can only be that of a Black woman. And we'll have my brother's perspective. Unc has some wisdom he'll be sharing with us in his perspective. But ultimately, what's the solution? If the problem is that we are not building wealth as a community in the manner that we would like to, because we're going at it alone or independently, what is that solution? How do we build better partnerships in our community, in our businesses, in our communities, in our teams, in all the things that we do? So that, friends, is the conversation today. And I want to introduce Bo's perspective right away. We'll talk about some stats and things like that. But he shared with us a video you watched, Bo. Can you tell us a little bit about the video and how that ties into today's conversation?
You know, there's a couple of videos that have been circulating, just looking at different components of today's sort of dating relationships. And I thought there was a really interesting response to one of those videos from John Hope Bryant, talking about, hey, we're here talking about, like, what did we spend this month? Like, you know, what does my man spend on me this month? Or what does my girlfriend do for me? And this idea that folks are talking about, you know, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a month of consumption, quite frankly, as being signs of love. And his point was, hey, if people really care for one another, and this is true for romantic relationships, but it's also true for professional relationships. If we really care for one another, we should be building something together. And the question he was asking was, well, what could you have done with those resources that you all are consuming as signs of love? What would your life have been like if those were invested, if they went towards building a shared future, a shared wealth platform? What would that do for your life? And how much more sustainable would that be than a month of fun, right? And so this question of what I reflected on was less about the hot mess that is today's dating culture, and much more about this idea of, are we in the search for independence and proving ourselves, ending up in a scenario where we limit our ability to actually achieve what we want? Because I think ultimately it does all start with us. Like success and wealth building starts as an individual exercise, but it has to evolve. And when you drive wealth through independence, when your wealth is driven, created, and manifest through an independent drive, you eventually become a prisoner to your wealth. But when your wealth can be more interdependent and connected to others, your wealth can be a source of freedom. And so oftentimes we set out on an individual pursuit for wealth, only to find that individual pursuit makes us trapped in that journey that we're on.
The key part about that, Bo, is when we talk about that individual, in that conversation of individual, you're locked into your frame of mind. You're locked into your thought process. You're locked into the things that you control. And a lot of times we reach a level of success based on those things that we control, when we miss the whole point is that if we share and we go with other people, we get other input that enhances our ability to think, which ultimately enhances our ability to grow. And a lot of that's not a concept that a lot of times many of us have not been introduced to because we think from scarcity rather than abundance.
I want to just add some stats to this, and I want to add the perspective. And again, disclaimer, I think it even says it before we start the episode that these opinions are our own. They are not the opinions of Keller Williams. They are not the opinions of all Black women in the world. These are just Julia Lachey's opinion. There's, I kind of led off with saying that the concept of independence is often imparted on Black women, and not always intentionally, certainly not intentionally, and often no fault of our own. And there's the whole, you remember the whole Black girl magic movement, the whole I don't need no man movement. I am not of that tribe. Particularly, I do understand that right now, significantly, Black women own 3.5 million businesses in the United States that generate $60 billion a year. Black women are the fastest growing people of entrepreneurs, even though we're still underrepresented in total business ownership. There are a lot of phenomenal things that Black women are doing alone. And doing solo, home ownership being one of those. The fastest growing group of homeowners. They make up 33% of all Black homeowners, which is way more than single Black men. And the challenge with that and the struggle with that is independently, the individual net worth of someone is very, very different than the combined net worth. I want to give you just a few numbers of kind of what that looks like and how that comparison is. Now, this isn't about a woman. The stat for a single Black woman's net worth is different than just a single Black person. But a single Black person's individual net worth, according to HBCU Money, is $29,000, which I thought that was incredibly low. But I think you all probably thought it was a little higher than that. But the difference being a Black married couple's median net worth is $131,000. That's 4 times the net worth. So just using those numbers of individual, and now again, I'm only speaking as a Black woman because I can only speak from my perspective, versus that of a married couple, there are incredibly significant differences. And obviously there's dual income that plays into that. There's higher buying power that plays into that. But there's some non-tangible things that play into that as well. So I don't know how you all feel about that perspective, or if you even want to touch that, or if we might get canceled if we start talking about independent Black women. But the reality of the situation is it's not actually helping us. And the net worth of a single Black woman is not very high, incredibly low, actually lower than that 29,000, because although we're educated people, those student loans and all those other things, very smart people, also not very rich.
There's so many dynamics that play into this because we're having a conversation like on the surface level. We're not throwing in the social construct. We're not throwing in the historical. How do I say it? The historical and ingrained thought processes that we have. All of those given aside and moving forward, looking through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. It's one of those things where you've been locked out for so long and you figured out how to get through the door, and you're getting through a door that's only the first door of the magic chamber. And I know I sound like I'm talking in code, but the reality is that when we get through the first door, a lot of people get through the first door and nobody that they know has ever been through the front door. So they just so excited to get through the front door, and they got through the front door by themselves. The key is, in order to get to the magic chamber where you talk about that household wealth quadruples, that's the magic chamber. And you got to take somebody there with you. And a lot of times we're so vulnerable. We feel so vulnerable because we got through the first door by ourselves, and we don't want to lose what we've already gotten. So we just stay where we are with the knowledge that we have and do the things that we know to do. And then we just dwell in that front door. And if we would just be a little vulnerable and invite the right person, notice I said the right person, invite the right person into your life that will open up the magic chamber, that's a different conversation. And the key part is the right person. And our perception sometimes, I shouldn't say our community's perception of the right person is distorted
What do you
because
mean by that?
because we don't we
Uh,
we live through the
Don't boast at
internet.
all. Oh, God. Yeah.
We live through the internet, right? We live through the
Okay.
internet, and we live through we judge our insides by other people's outsides. We're big at that. And so we're living this thing where we see all these other people with all these other things, doing all these other things, and we believe that the person who they're connected with is actually giving them those things, and we look for people to give us things instead of looking for people to help us build things. I'm gonna
yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to double down on what Emmerich just said, because I think the conversations become the right person is the person who will do for me, not the right person is the person with whom I can build something that will be greater.
Yeah.
And that's not just in relationships. That's in a job too. People are asking the question, the right job is the one that's going to pay me the most or give me the most flexibility to work from home and not have to take time off. And that's the wrong question. The right question is, what's the right relationship that's going to further my capacity, that's going to complement my skills, that's going to stabilize my nervous system so that we can build together to create something greater.
And you know, Bo, like that part right there, we do this thing called we do with hyperbolic discounting, right? If you look at the one thing they talk about hyperbolic discounting, where you take something of the value of what it represents today, as opposed to letting it play out and take the long term value of what it represents to you in the future. And a lot in that space, we don't, from a relationship perspective, a lot of times we've never had it, so we seek it, so we want to go get it. However, we don't understand what it took to get it. It's almost that thing like be do have, right? If we go to bowl, we talk about be do have. You know, I can, you know, if you talk about be do have, a lot of times I say this and unapologetically, we think about have do be. We've been trained that way. If I had what you have, right, I can do the things that you do, and I can be who you are. That's and we always looking for what, you know, what somebody has, and then instead of reversing it, the be do have, you be the person, and then do the things so you can have it. It's the same thing in a relationship. You got to put that work in a relationship. And that's one thing that I can talk about is, you know, that growing together, building together relationship, because I've been married for 39 years. Right. And I
Well, and you've
understand
also
that.
been in a business partnership with Pat for how many years?
27. This is
Right.
28th year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I
And
mean,
so,
yeah.
yeah, and it's over time, and it's the right people. I wasn't who I was 28 years ago. She wasn't who she was 28 years ago. What I clearly understood though, and I understood this young and early, that if it was solely dependent on me to make this venture as successful as it was, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, I know that you just named two powerful Black women, so we know that. We know that. We know that Unc is Unc because he had his wife and Pat behind him for the
Right.
last 30 years. Yeah.
So
We know
yeah, and
that.
that's just real. But and so
Yeah.
here's the challenge. I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna drop this off for a second. You have to be smart enough to understand what your gifts are and what your weaknesses are, or what your strengths and your weaknesses. And you really have to understand not just your strengths, your gifts. And what I always understood, that I have a issue, which both of you know, I have an issue with structure. I have structural thought issues. So I had to find somebody who was strong in structural thought to complement my gift of vision.
In some ways, you actually were seeking out, in building those relationships, people who had something to give. But what they had to give was a characteristic, a quality, a skill, a component, a life view, right? That together with your life view could be multiplied, right? Whereas today, we so look at people and look for their outsides. We look for what they could do for us, what experiences they could provide us with, what they could
Right.
buy for us. Or can they make my life easier and do these tasks for me, versus asking the question of like, what are they bringing to the table from a behaviors, perspectives, talents, thinking perspective that would make a better whole?
Oh no,
And we,
I am the table. Ain't that
Mhm.
what they say?
Mm-hmm.
I don't bring the table. I am the table. Go ahead, Julie. I know you laughing at
no,
that. I did
no,
that just for you.
but no, I mean, you're both saying something important. When I think of people who have been highly successful in relationships, businesses for any long period of time, there is a common denominator that the person that they have partnered with is filling in where they're like. Even my pastor and the first lady, right? Very different personalities, because she is something that he is not. It allows him to be something that he is not. That's why a lot of women talk about being in their soft era. They want a man so that they don't have to be hard and all the time. They want someone to complement the skills that they have. A lot of those things in any business, even in the businesses that I'm running, I come in like a bull in a china shop. But my
No.
MCA and the guys with me, they're nice. They're, everybody loves them. They're gentle. I couldn't have two of me. That would be problematic, right? Like
Yes, absolutely.
whatever, Emmerich. but you know what I mean? So I like the idea of what he's saying, that he did actually seek out people who complemented the things that, that were going to be strengths to your weaknesses, and complement what it was. You knew you were trying to build something, but finding, again, whether it be in a relationship or in a business partnership, someone who doesn't have the same skills as you. That's what we use the disc for. Right. That's what we use these
Right.
personality assessments for, the
Mm-hmm.
KPA. You're looking for people's characteristics and skill sets and personality traits that are going to complement what you're looking to accomplish. But
Yeah.
what happens when people don't know what they're looking to accomplish? We're assuming everyone knows that
Yeah.
they know what they're looking to accomplish. So what happens then if you have no idea what the goal is
Maybe
or
you
where
should
you're
stay by
going?
your damn self then until you figure it out. Cause I mean, really,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
being real.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you go out and you're looking for somebody and you're looking for something, you don't even know who you are.
True.
So when then you go and find something and you find it over and over again and you say, well, there's no good men out here, there's no good women out here. Maybe it's your ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
You don't know you don't even know who you are, what you're looking for. Yeah.
your solution to being desirable for a man or a woman is to say, I have independence. Right back to Emmerich's comment. I am the table. I
Mhm.
am the complete package. And what you'll find is that the pressure to be that, which is highly seductive, and which I believe is actually one of the most racist narratives in our society, that we tell Black people that their success is an individual exercise,
Mhm.
because it disempowers you. When you believe your success is an individual exercise, you're blind to what's necessary to move forward. And
Mm-hmm.
there are those of us who, because that narrative is so deeply ingrained in us, we actually will destroy the opportunity to actually go beyond. So we teach in CV, right? We teach this in CV. I do it, we do it, they do it theirs, as a progression of business. And there's some of us that are seeing, like we look from the outside and we say, oh, that person's standing up there, and we do it all the time for entrepreneurs now in America. Like Jeff Bezos is some individual like genius who pushed everything forward. If I could be like him, and then we say I'm gonna go be like him. That's great. Okay, but that guy, he's only there. I don't know if it's a story of like how Amazon actually, the woman who actually made Amazon happen. Like there's all these other people that are part of that story, and so I think especially in real estate, where we glorify and hold up the top performer, the entrepreneur, as some iconic thing. There are way too many people in our industry who are fighting really hard to be the individual representation of something great, not understanding that the people who actually achieved that did it with a whole bunch of help and with a team. And so they say, I want to be Unc. But what they are is like Unc running around pretending he could actually figure out his computer and figuring out he could actually structure the thing. And everybody knows, like, that's just fake. Like, we know him. Like, we know he's going to mess up the computer. So, like, if he's here telling us, I'm the man, I am the table. Well, that table ain't going to have no computer on it. It's just like,
all right now.
It might be a fun table to sit at. There might be some good food.
All of it. All of it. But that, and it's real, man. It's real. I believe that in some of these spaces, a lot of times, again, we look at success the wrong way, right? We look at success as being able to have an abundance of just being able to do more than pay your bills, save a little bit of money, and go on vacation. And we take success at that because for most of us, we never got to go on vacation when we were children, right? We never knew there was a savings when we were children. And so just to get to that point, that's success for us a lot of times. And when we get to that place, any idea or anything that threatens the possibility of losing that position or going backwards from that position, we're not interested in entertaining. So we lock into our what we call success. And I call that's just a measure of success. That's not success. It's a measure of success based on where you started from. And in that independence, right, we get locked in and we get focused in, and then we lock other people out of our lives. And we're not even receptive to invite that person in. We say we want that person in. However, saying what you want and doing what it takes to make what you want to actually happen, there's two different things. It's a decision that has to be made. There's a decision that has to be made in that space of being vulnerable and being willing to open up and being willing to say that, okay, I had some great ideas. There's somebody else who can plus my ideas. Because like sometimes people say, hey, man, he said, and I tell people all the time, I'm living a dream. And I said, well, what's up with you? He said, I want to be like you. And people say that. And I tell people all the time, don't set your sights so low.
But you point out something really important, Emmerich. And I don't know, Julia, how you see this, but like in my mind, I always talk about this when we talk about entrepreneurs. When you go from I do it to we do it, two things happen to successfully make that transition. So whenever you transition from it's my table and I'm going to invite other people to the table, two things are required. And Emmerich just hit on both of them. I just want to make sure we highlight them. One is you have to be vulnerable to the idea that you aren't the whole thing, that you have gaps. So to actually build a team, you have to be open to having gaps. And we joke about it, we laugh about it. That's very hard for highly successful people to be comfortable exposing their gaps, especially if we've told them that success looks like holding it all together and showing that you're always composed and there's no room for a mistake. There's no room for a deficiency. If that's what you've been taught your whole life, it's very hard to be vulnerable. And second of all, Emmerich touched on this, you have to be willing to go backwards because you're not yet good at I was good at I do it. I'm not yet good at we do it. So inevitably when I step into that space, I'm going to be exposed and I'm going to be vulnerable. And I likely am going to go back a little bit. I'm going to put at risk something. I'm going to put at risk the possibility that I could go backwards. And I think there's too many people that are unwilling to expose their vulnerabilities and unwilling to take the risk of going backwards, that they stay stuck at that point forever.
Well, do you even think that, and I'm talking about a relationship now, that men and women are aligned when it comes to building wealth? Is it the same? We're assuming that there's some sort of alignment in what building wealth looks like. Or maybe does that go back to actually finding the right person to be aligned with?
It's just part of it is just your concept of money.
Okay.
It's
Say
your
more.
concept of money.
Yeah.
If just like that video, we said, if your concept of money is I make money, I spend money, I got a $40,000 a month burn rate on personal stuff, and then you connect with a person who has a burn rate on personal items of $1,000 a month, then there's a misalignment. right? And there's a huge divide there where somebody's going to have to switch, and it's probably the person with the $40,000 a month burn rate. They're going to have to be willing to make sacrifices in their outward display of who they are in order to grow their wealth as the person whose burn rate is $1,000 a month.
I think it's really interesting because in relationships, it's really hard to align, right, around like financial goals because everybody's got so many deeply embedded childhood life stories about money. Like it's almost like everybody has a relationship with money, and now we're trying to have a relationship together, and your relationship with money is coming into our relationship together, right? And so if my relationship with money was it's something to be saved, and your relationship with money is something to be spent, or if my relationship with money is that having money is a good thing and makes me virtuous, and your relationship with money is having money is bad because people have money do bad things, then we're going to have those conflicts in our relationship. So I think one of the most important things when you're building with somebody, either in a romantic partnership or marriage or in something that's a business relationship, is that you guys have the same orientation of money, right? And at least you understand how your roles work. Because if it's not necessarily that you actually have to have the same perspective, but you have to understand that both your perspectives matter. So I could tell you, like, some of my experiences, you can actually accomplish a lot with people that have different approaches to money, but they understand that they're building together. So one might say, my approach to money is going to be more about safety. And so I'm going to show up in this partnership and try to highlight the risks or the safety issues. The other person said, my orientation to money is much more about growth. So I'm going to bring growth and abundance into our conversation. If you guys can both be aware that both are necessary, right, then you can actually benefit from each other's perspectives. But if we walk in saying my perspective is right because I'm the individual, I'm going to do it by myself, and so my perspective is the only perspective, and we start to put down our partner, that whole thing unwinds real quick.
Yeah, and Bo, I was listening to somebody say that, and I was listening to something, and the woman was saying, I got to be my own individual because I got to be able to spend my money to do what I want to do, how I want to do it. So I got to go out and work and make sure I maintain my individuality. And the commentator was saying, well, when's the last time you had a long-term relationship? Well, I haven't for a while. And the commentator said, that's why you by your damn self right now, because you want to be an individual. And relationship is a team sport.
So what are some questions that people should be asked? So, well, let me even just back up. So we have identified that there is a cost of doing it alone. It's a significant cost. We gave you stats and dollar amounts and everything. There's a lot of varying perspectives on how to find that, but it sounds like the solution is partnership. And so if the solution is partnership, maybe we should talk about how to identify the right partner to not have to do it alone. We've already established that you can have 4 times the wealth if you're with someone else. And it's not just because, again, it's not just because they're bringing something of value with them to the table. There's the scripture about this, right? It says 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. If one falls, one's there to lift them up. But woe to him who is alone when he falls. He has no one else to lift him up. So that could even mean like physically, spiritually, emotionally. Those things matter when you're trying to build something. So who is the partner? I mean, that level of partnership is, to me, more important than if you came with some money or what you brought to the table. That type of lifting up, it becomes more necessary to be able to grow forward. So then what do we do now to actually find said person?
We've been talking a lot about tactical skills and approaches.
Yeah.
But there's no substitute, having seen, especially for a driven, and I'm going to speak, I think it's for everybody. So this is universal. It is extremely true for a driven man, and especially true for a driven Black man. There is no substitute for lifting somebody up. And for people who experience a beatdown every day when they go out into the world, the power of being uplifted is so strong that it probably trumps 90 of these other things. Like if you just had a partner in business or in life that lifted you up and you lifted them up, I bet your results skyrocket through the roof. Even if you don't have the same, even if your skills are not well aligned, if you just had that basis. And that is one of the bases. So my perspective on relationships in our community, that's the thing that's most missing.
Yeah.
How many couples do you know where they truly lift each other up because they're so fighting to be individually important, they cease to lift each other up. So to me, that would be the first thing I would look for.
I'm getting ready to go real controversial.
Mm-hmm.
But Julia will agree with me on this one. I know it. But what you're asking is you're asking for someone to be submissive.
I don't know. You know, that word is controversial, Emmerich. So I don't know that you would even have to. No, I actually disagree, but I don't disagree with submissive,ness, but I do disagree.
Okay.
I do disagree with that. That's the same thing, because it could be because I have people who do that for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I talk about the 5 keys to successful entrepreneurship, one of those is people who support you. It's because it's people who lift you up. And so it doesn't have to be submissiveness, because, you know, in my down times, you've been that for me, you know, and Trey, my business partner, will call me every morning, gas me up. No, you're Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins ain't got nothing on you, you know, just because I'm down right now, you know. And so it doesn't have to be submissiveness. It's literally someone in your circle who is lifting you up.
Let me give it to you. Let me explain submissiveness. Because, see, a lot of you, like you said, is misunderstood. In a relationship, submissiveness goes both ways, right? Because at some point, you're going to be up and the other person is going to be down. Or you're going to be down, the other person is going to be down, are going to be up. At the end of the day, you have to be willing to submit yourself to be open and vulnerable to other ideas.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, no matter what the relationship is, somebody's going to have to be in charge. And I'm going to say this again, controversial. When you have a relationship and the man is not in charge, it's only a matter of time before he pushes back in some kind of way, because typically men aren't wired to be totally submissive, particularly to a woman. And that might be a huge.
That's a whole different.
I'm about to. At the danger of, I think not.
And I told you I was crossing the line. I told you that. I told you
that. I'm in the danger of even speaking when y'all are going down the path you're going down, which I want to stay as far away from as I possibly can. I will say this, that I do believe great partnerships are when both parties behave in service to something greater than both of them. So it's not about, there's a whole nother conversation y'all can have about gender roles and stuff, but like, this is not about necessarily I must submit to my partner. I must submit to our broader goals. I must be in service and in submission to the direction we are going in. And if
clean it up however you want, Bo. It's submission.
And if I'm unwilling,
clean up however you want. Somebody's got to submit. Somebody's got to be willing to lay it all on the line and say, I'm not the leader. I'm not the leader. You're the leader here.
Both to build. You know, we have masterminds. Like the idea of a mastermind is that you put minds together and therefore you create this like meta mind that's better.
Yeah.
The idea of a relationship is that you put two people together and together you create something that's outside of each individual. That's why it's so hard. You have to ask a question, not about me, not about you, not what did you do for me, what I do for you, but what happened for us. And for this to actually be, I believe both parties in the partnership must be in submission to the goals of the partnership.
Yes,
service,
absolutely.
Whatever word you want to call it. If you submission you off because it's too loaded, use a different word. But in service, we have to behave in service, not of one another. And many of us are conditioned to show up. I'm conditioned to show up in a relationship and want to please my partner. So I show up to make my partner happy, and I expect my partner to make me happy. But really, I should be thinking about what is the best partnership for both of us, this thing that's above both of us. It's greater than my partner. It's greater than me. And how do I serve that? And if we can align on what that is, then we can both be in service of that thing.
And that's always a delicate balance because it depends on what day and what part of the greater good you're talking about, because as humans, your idea of the greater good is at a higher level than the other person, and vice versa. And that's why I said it goes both ways, and both people have to. And the key part of that is there has to be an understanding of who each individual person is, and then you have to draw a line to say, okay, that's their space, and I have to be willing to acquiesce to their thoughts on that space. And likewise, the other way, the other person has to be willing to acquiesce to the other person's thought in that space. And then there's a place where we come together, and it's just, and all of this is about the common good. But then there's that common good thought where just like you said, what's the genuine best idea for all parties involved at this moment? Because everybody it's like, what's that thing about you should have at least three bank accounts. She has her bank account, he has his bank account, then there's a community bank account. It's the same thought process in the relationship. One person has one side, the other person has one side. What's the thing in the middle? And this is tricky. This is tricky.
I want to go back to identifying that the nature of this conversation, the purpose of this conversation was that there is a cost to doing it alone. And there's a lot of different perspectives on how you not do it alone. There's risks with partnering, but it sounds like the solution is to identify the right partner and have a common goal and set a vision. So you may come at it differently, but how do we be more communal in that, even in our businesses, especially in our businesses, so that we have the right leverage, we have the right people and the right seats in our personal relationships, but we cannot do everything alone by ourselves and have the same level of success that maybe you desire. If you're that person doing it by yourself, good for you, but I would imagine it won't last as long as if you were building something bigger with people together.
Julie, I don't know if about last as long. It can last as long. However, is it operating at the best level?
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't think it'll ever operate. I'm about 99.9% sure that it will never operate at the level that it could.
That's true, because I could be doing this by myself forever. That's an option that could happen, and I'm not. What do they say? It's not the best use of my skills or
it's
whatever.
Not the highest and best use of your time, skill.
I think the question is
the juice worth the squeeze?
And ultimately, the question is, what's the cost?
What's the cost?
I do believe that all success begins individually. We have to actually muster ourselves to take action and to move forward. But ultimately, as we do that, if we continue down a path of individual success and individual achievement, there's a cost to it. And we might actually achieve a lot, or we might be perceived to achieve a lot. But what that does to our energy, there's a price to isolation. There's a price to loneliness. There's a price to decisions made without consultation and advice. Mm-hmm. There's a price to carrying burdens all by yourself. And I think we're all very aware of the cost of those things because we carry them every day. And so if you're carrying some of those things, I think it's worth thinking about. Is this narrative of individual success actually serving me?
I think we can end it right there. That's a mic drop. Friends, I'm so glad you tuned in for today's episode. You can catch us here every single week on the Color of Money podcast.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.